Huge, I mean huge week in the Big 12 as all the contenders square off this weekend. Texas looks to show more improvement versus a very shaky TCU-D. West Virginia makes a claim for Big 12 consideration. Kansas State also vies for its entry into the race. And Baylor and Texas Tech shoot for 100. What do you say? This is a Big 12 Breakdown. Mark Rogers and Mark Rogers TV bringing on the best bloggers in the conference to talk up Big 12 football. They love their football in the Midwest and in Texas and in the Big 12, and they also love their points. And we saw it last week with Texas Christian and Texas Tech in Lubbock, and we should see more of the same out of the Red Raiders and the Baylor Bears. We got Hunter Cooke from Viva the Matador and also Robert Whetsell from Cowboys Ride for Free joining us tonight to break down the Big 12. And we have four major matchups to talk about. So all the would-be contenders, the expected contenders on the field against each other this weekend. And then we're going to kind of let Iowa State and Kansas play off to the side and kind of duel out the last place. Expected last place in the Big 12. So, Robert, let's start with your game against Texas last weekend. I expected the Cowboys to go to Austin and just take care of business and lay down the hammer, win that game by a couple touchdowns, but didn't turn out to be the case, but a win's a win.
Yeah, a win is a win. There were a lot of OSU folks that weren't necessarily expecting a blowout. You know, our offense right now is not this high-powered, point manufacturing machine like many of the rest of the Big 12 teams. So it wasn't that surprising that the game stayed a little close. It was surprising it stayed as close and that OSU actually trailed. But I can't even begin. I think the game itself just pales in comparison to the post-game display of Texas folks, talking about potential corruption with the officials, and the Big 12 trying to come back with a non-apology of, we didn't think it was that egregious. And above all that, last week or 2 weeks ago, their, field goal kicker Rose shanks an extra point, and then this week their freshman punter muffs the snap. So that, officials aren't calling that. So Texas has some issues. I think they look better with Hurd at quarterback and Swoops. I don't think there's any question. But OSU will take the win and move on. That was a mess. If you can win games like that, then stuff's on your side for the time being.
One of the great joys I have in doing this show each and every week is bringing you guys on and not just getting the analysis, but also watching you guys just revel in the Texas plight, the recent Texas plight, and just seeing you guys snicker at, or just belly laugh like Hunter's doing right now. So, Hunter, we're going to kick it to you. And no, you can't talk about Texas. You need to talk about your team first. Texas Tech, TCU. Talk about a classic, whether you love offensive football or not. And sometimes I get a bit grossed out. That's the first thing that comes to mind. That's the first term that comes to mind. Typically, I would be a little bit more eloquent about it, but a little too much offense for me typically. But that game was just so crazy, you just had to embrace it. Unfortunately, the Red Raiders coming up on the short end, but this is a much improved football team.
Absolutely, and we've been saying that from for a long time. And last year, just kind of an anomaly. A lot of injuries, really young team, unsure at the quarterback position. They thought was going to be really good. And man, I'm just at this point in the game, at this point in the season, I'm just excited that they are here to play. And man, what a heck of a game they put on. And a lot of that kind of defensive stuff is really exacerbated by the fact that both teams are running this hurry-up air raid. TCU got 14 possessions, and they only scored on 50% of them, only scored on 7 of those possessions. We held them pretty well, blocked a field goal, forced a field goal wide, I believe left, little chip shot that guy just kind of whiffed on. We didn't play like necessarily terrible defense. Man, TCU, credit to them. Josh Doxson is an incredible receiver, and he's going to be making a lot of waves on Sundays. He's an unbelievable talent, and they have an unbelievable offense. And honestly, at this point, so do we. We just have so many weapons that we can throw at everyone. But, man, that game, that hurt. That was a really, really tough game to watch the end of, especially getting so close with the near Stanford Cal finish. Thought the band was about to rush the field there for a sec. But, man, it would have been nice to take them out. But ultimately, I think we've said from the beginning of the season that little stretch for us of Arkansas, TCU, and Baylor, we're happy if we go 0-3 and play well. We consider it a win if we go 1-3. And, man, if we get 2-3, we're probably going to be partying in the streets of Lubbock. And we've already got the one, and we played really well in the other. So I feel pretty good. Feel really good about this team.
And because of the Arkansas game you just mentioned, getting that win over the Hogs 35-24, then you almost won this game. You get those two games, and regardless of the disrespect coming into the season, people have to start to take Texas Tech seriously. And if they watched the game and took it in, understanding that TCU, which I called Texas Christian a few minutes ago, I don't believe that's allowed anymore. I slipped. I did it. TCU at still number 4 in the country, I believe. That's still a monumental effort and shows the progress the Red Raiders have made. So Oklahoma State survives. TCU survives against Texas Tech. Off on the side, West Virginia was playing a little non-conference game against Maryland, a bowl team that won 7 games from last season. Now, the Terps look horrible at this point, but still 45-6. So what I'm curious about between the two of you as staunch Big 12 guys, have you yet embraced West Virginia? Are they truly part of the Big 12, Robert?
Oh, I have no problem with them being part of the Big 12. I mean, distance aside, if you take the distance away, I think personality-wise, they're a good fit. Definitely a good fit for the conference. Dana Holgerson's a great coach to have in the conference. You know, the school has a rural feel to it. So I don't have a problem with them. I think it was a great fit. I think it was unfortunate when they came in that they couldn't have dragged Louisville in with them. I think that just would have been a natural as far as rivalry goes. But yeah, I love them. I think it's a good fit.
We have Matt Hofeld from Crimson and Cream Machine joining us at the perfect time because we were talking a little West Virginia football with the Mountaineers at 3-0, coming off that throttling of the Terps 45-6. West Virginia goes to OU this weekend. These two teams have played some ridiculously high-scoring games in past seasons. The Sooners are a 7-point favorite. I got to tell you guys that I am really just happy that we're seeing the contenders play this weekend. We got 4 what could be really good football games between the Big 12 this season this week when it's basically been the Minnesota game for TCU and it's been the Oklahoma-Tennessee game. That's all we've had to hang our hats on early for the Big 12. But now that we're in conference play, we've got some tremendous matchups. So Oklahoma hosting West Virginia. You got by Tennessee in miracle fashion a couple weeks ago. Matt, your thoughts about the Sooners hosting the Mountaineers?
I think Oklahoma needs to be ready. You know, the general consensus amongst the fan base is that the Mountaineers have not played anybody of substance on their schedule, which, you know, you can make the excuse about Liberty. I don't know. I look at Maryland as being a rivalry game. I have family from West Virginia, so it's a rivalry game for my family as well. But you look at the nation's top scoring defense. You look at what Dana Holgerson is doing with his offense, and the thing that really catches me with West Virginia right now is that they've run the ball almost 50 times more than they've thrown the ball. And when you think of Dana Holgerson, you think about a wide-open spread attack offense where the quarterback flings the ball everywhere. But that's not been the case through 3 games this season with the Mountaineers. Now, I do believe that they're probably going to try to do some things with the ball in the air that maybe they haven't done yet, just because they haven't had the necessity to do those things yet. But I think Oklahoma needs to be ready. They need to be ready to go. They need to be ready to fight. I don't think this is going to be a gimme game for the Sooners. What's interesting about this series, the 2 games in Morgantown have been phenomenal. I mean, they just you better stay awake or you're going to lose. Miss 3 touchdowns. But the game in Norman 2 years ago was a snooze fest. I mean, low scoring, ugly, and so it really you just got to wonder. It's the first road trip for the Mountaineers this season. What's it going to be like for Skylar Howard to come in front of 85,000 fans? What's it going to be like for this defense to try to get their signals and their calls in? You know, Dana Holgerson said yesterday they've pretty much had to change every single way that they signal their plays in to deal with the expected crowd noise. So that's going to be a big factor. But I think it's a travesty. This is 11 a.m. kickoff. I think this, when you look at a top 25 matchup, I think this deserves prime time. But it's going to be a fun game, and I think anybody who's expecting an Oklahoma blowout is probably going to be a little bit shocked at the final score here.
Yeah, I have the sickness that allows me to remember random football scores. I think OU won that game 16-7, if I recall that game against West Virginia. Hey, Matt, before I move it on to Hunter to get to dive into this Baylor-Texas Tech, since we haven't had you on this season, your thoughts about the Big 12 performance thus far overall and where the conference stands nationally?
You know, I don't think that TCU and Baylor are where people expected them to be through the first 3 games of the season. I'm not trying to take away from their ranking, you know, to say that they don't deserve to be in top 5 where they are. But I think particularly with the injury on TCU, a lot of people were shocked. You know, they're a tip pass away from losing last Saturday in Lubbock, Texas. So I do think probably TCU and Baylor are still the top guys in the conference. But I think the gap is a lot closer than what people expect it to be. I think West Virginia, again, you look at what they've done, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that's a team that no one really expected to be a quiet contender, but they are. And I've not been a big proponent of Cliff Kingsbury and what he's doing at Texas Tech, but you know, you got to be impressed through, you know, even though they lost against TCU last Saturday, I mean, he had the team in position to win that game. And so I think the Big 12 is stronger across the board than what people expected it to be. You know, I think Texas is bad. I think they're colossally bad. I think there's a lot of things going on there, and now the whole argument against officiating is just something that is just part of the deal that's going to, you know, add to their frustration. But the reality is that program's in a really bad shape. And typically when you have Texas or Oklahoma down, the perception of the Big 12 is that the conference itself is down. But I don't think that's the case at all this year. I think the Big 12 is a lot stronger than what people expected it to be.
And if we get to a similar situation that we had last season at the end of the year where the college football playoff has to decide Big 12 or otherwise, you did win the big non-conference games against Minnesota and Tennessee. Now you have to hope that the Gophers and the Volunteers make some hay in their conferences and make you look good. All right, Hunter, we got Texas Tech, Baylor. We got a 17-point spread. We've got, as you mentioned, like 91 on the board that Vegas says that this game is going to reach on the scoreboard. So handicap the Red Raiders and the Patrick Mahomes situation at Baylor, where you scared them last year like 50-48, something like that.
Yeah, it's hopefully going to be another barn burner, but honestly, this year I really think that Baylor's going to win by 2 scores. We're not going to come into this game under the radar. We are prominent now. Everyone knows that we're going to put up points. Everyone knows that, you know, we'll get a couple of stops a game as opposed to no stops a game now. So we have the potential to challenge them. But honestly, I really just don't think that we win this game. I think it's a very, very uncomfortable game for Baylor through about 3.5 quarters that they win with a relatively comfortable lead. We have a lot of firepower, but man, that Baylor offensive line and that Baylor defensive line, in particular, Andrew Billings and Sean Oakman, are just incredible. They're very, very good, and towards the end of the game, towards that fourth quarter, that's where the difference is going to be made. Our offensive line is very good, but I really don't see any way where we can hold Billings and Oakman back for the full 4. It's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a barn burner, and it hurts my little Red Raider heart to say this, but I'd take Baylor by 10.
Jay Robert, you've been waiting patiently for Robert to keep quiet for this long. I don't know what's been going on there, but Oklahoma State, Kansas State, well, we know that Bill Snyder is going to have his team prepared to come to Stillwater.
Yeah, they've had 2 weeks to prepare, coming off a bye week. That Snyder makes me uncomfortable, and he's actually had more time to get ready for this. So they're going to be a tough ticket, especially with the Oklahoma State team where offensively there are a lot of questions flying around. Rudolph definitely came out of the game against Texas with a dinged hand. He was having some numbness in his throwing hand, which seemed obvious during the game at a certain point. The offense itself is playing very conservative. Gundy has decided to take a very conservative tack with the offense. So I don't see a high-scoring game. I mean, the over/under on this game is 50, and who knows, that could be high. I expect a defensive battle. Stillwater will be fired up, obviously. So I mean, we'll see. I'm personally shocked. The line on this game started at -3, and within, I think, less than 2 days, the line jumped to -8. OSU laying 8 points. I mean, personally, I think OSU wins the game. I would be all over. That -8 in Kansas. Kansas State getting 8 points, but should be a solid defensive game. OSU's defense is just playing phenomenal right now. I mean, Texas isn't good, but what they did to Texas after Texas scored their only touchdown just was, I mean, they made them look impotent versus OSU just offensively made themselves look impotent. But we'll see. It should be a good game, and Snyder will have his boys ready. I get to be there too, so hopefully OSU will be ready, and I won't regret the trip to Stillwater.
Yeah, it could be a little ugly offensively, but I'll be surprised if it's anything past that 8-point spread with the Wildcats coming to town.
Oh, and by the way, the other thing too, starting running back Chris Carson suffered some type of a foot injury. We don't know what extent it is. They said he'd be back in practice Tuesday, but Gundy, like Cliff, tends to not really say much that you can trust with the injury thing, so we'll see what happens on Saturday.
Okay, I'd love to get some predictions from you guys, but before we do that, one of the big questions I'd love to ask you guys to get some insight on is what player, whether it be for your team or across the league, don't we know about right now that we're going to know about soon, who's really jumping out there and who's gotten off to a great start, or maybe a key player that we don't know about who could be key to your team winning this weekend. However you want to take that, and Matt, we'll start with you in regards to a player in the Big 12, probably from Oklahoma, that you're really high on that maybe we don't know a whole lot about right now.
Well, I mean, man, there's a lot if you go on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, a lot of people, Baker Mayfield being out of football for a year to come back in and do what he's doing, it appears to be a different quarterback from Texas Tech. You look at how he was able to rally the team in Knoxville. He didn't have a win like that when he was with the Red Raiders. But he's sticking with that same theme. I think Patrick Mahomes came out of nowhere. A lot of people outside of Lubbock didn't really realize the talent that Cliff Kingsbury had there. And I think the way Mahomes is playing is really key to what not only the fast start that Texas Tech had, but also the way they're able to hang and go. I mean, I think, again, I'm a guy who has not been a big fan of Kingsbury and what he had done earlier on in Lubbock, but they went toe-to-toe with the number 4 team in the nation. I think that's significant to what Kingsbury's building there, and I think Patrick Mahomes has a lot to do with that. I think I picked 2 quarterbacks because I think at the beginning of the season, people just kind of was the keynote guy, signal caller in this conference, and I think this conference is way deeper at quarterback than just one guy at TCU. So I absolutely think that that Baker Mayfield is Oklahoma's key against West Virginia, just like I think Mahomes is Texas Tech's key against Baylor. So those are 2 guys I would look at that, again, outside their respective campuses, not a lot of people talked about in preseason.
Matt is bringing up a subject that I definitely want to hit once we get to the offseason. I want to bring you guys on. I want to have you rank the coaches in the Big 12 and get your take on the coaching performance from everybody in the Big 12. That would be great. Would love to hear that. All right, the reason I know about Patrick Mahomes is because I talked to this guy. Hunter Cooke set me up all off-season on Patrick Mahomes. So, Hunter, who's your guy in regards to who we need to know about?
Well, coming into the Baylor game, Baylor obviously they look like a team that throws the ball a lot. They look like they like to spread the ball around, but they're a really balanced attack. They really like to get their running backs, Shock Winwood and Dylan Chafin, between the tackles. They really hit the A gaps and B gaps hard. And to combat that, we're going to need a heck of a game out of our senior nose guard, our Rika Levy, number 33. He's a big old boy, lost 40 pounds in the offseason. And he's been a guy that our coaching staff has really, really pumped up as a guy who's going to contribute. He's played above average so far. He played exceptionally well against Arkansas. Really stuffed a lot of those holes and forced the Razorbacks to go to the air. And if we're going to beat Baylor, we have to make them one-dimensional. If we're going to make Baylor one-dimensional, we have to have a good performance all across the defensive line. And it absolutely starts right there with Rika Levy, lined up in the A gap.
I love this. I now know who the nose tackle is for Texas Tech. This is great. Okay, Robert, give me one player, and then we're going to go through each game, and we're going to get your predictions across the board.
Well, I'll echo what Matt said. I've been really impressed with Mayfield. I've been very impressed with Mahomes. Both of those guys are real difference makers for their teams. As far as OSU goes, Emmanuel Ogba has been tremendous off the edge. This guy is an NFL all the way. But the kid that's been huge has been Darian Daniels and the two kids, Darian Daniels and Vincent Taylor on the inside, defensive tackles who we weren't sure what was going to happen at that position. And those two kids, and Darian Daniels, a true freshman, coming in over 300 pounds and is contributing every game, which is just a real surprise, but it's been very pleasant. So for me, those are the players that I look at and go, those guys are really making a mark this season, maybe weren't on the radar when it started.
All right, we're going to take individual games, so I'm going to start with Robert, then go to Matt, then go to Hunter. We've got Oklahoma hosting West Virginia. Need I say more? It's a huge game.
Huge game. I hope it's better than the last time they played in Norman, as Matt alluded to. Over/under at 59.5. Think that's low. OU laying 7. For some reason I feel it's a little high. Really, I honest to goodness, I have no feel for this game. I'm going to give OU the edge because they're at home. But I really have no feel for this game at all.
Hey, Robert, if we start picking games against the spread and you guys are on the money, we're going to drive our viewership up through the roof. So let's keep that in mind. We could possibly go that route. Okay, Matt, we've got your Sooners hosting West Virginia.
Yeah, look, man, I think West Virginia's contender. I think they're the real deal. I think I said on our website just this week, I think this is the best West Virginia team that Oklahoma has faced since they got it handed to them in the Fiesta Bowl back in 2007. I think it's a role in this game. I'll take the Sooners 30-24 in a game that a lot of people. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think the defenses for both teams are going to step up. I think the strength of the Baylor, they're not even playing this game, are they? The strength of the Mountaineer offense so far has been their running attack. I think the strength of the Oklahoma's defense is their front seven, and so I think those are going to counterbalance each other. I think there's going to be some turnovers here. Like I said, I think special teams comes into play here. I like Oklahoma in a tight game, around 30-24 over the Mountaineers.
I'm taking note that a low-scoring game in the Big 12 is 30-24. Okay, Hunter. We've got West Virginia going to Oklahoma.
Give me Oklahoma 28-24 in overtime. Baker Mayfield pulls out some heroics and really gets it done.
All right, Hunter, while we've got you, we'll hit you up with a TCU now 4-0, 15-point favorite hosting the Texas Longhorns at 1-3.
TCU, I think they go absolutely nuclear on Texas. They are getting TCU is getting a couple defensive linemen back. I think they're not going to face a passing attack like ours. Give me TCU 55, Texas 21.
Okay. All right, Matt, your hated Longhorns, arch rival, Red River rivalry, I believe, coming up next week. They go to TCU.
Look, man, I don't think Texas is in a good spot right now. I think there's a lot of things that are on fire right now in Austin, and one of those is the football program. That said, this is it, man. I mean, if Texas starts 1-4, I think it's going to be a string of colossally bad things that take place in Austin with this football program. I think the Longhorns put up a fight. I think they played. There's enough talent on this team, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. Remember, they put 14 points off defensive scores against Oklahoma State last week. Had it not been for that, this game's a blowout against the Cowboys. I think they can keep it close to TCU. One of our co-writers, Rich DeCray, thinks I'm crazy for this. I like I'm going to go ahead and say the Longhorns come within 4 points of this game, and I think it's going to be in the mid-40s.
Well, considering Texas is playing better football each and every week, they have for the last couple of weeks, and what we saw out of the TCU defense, who knows? All right, Robert.
I'm sorry. This is probably going to be a pick y'all come back and make fun of me for, but I'm looking at it, and I think that this is it. They're circling the wagons in Austin, and if it doesn't happen Saturday, then it's over for the Longhorns this season.
That's what we like, bold predictions. We know there's going to be chaos somewhere. It's going to happen at some point, somewhere, multiple times. All right, Robert, you got a chance to see the Longhorns last week. They're going to TCU.
TCU 60, Texas 14, and Texas starts complaining about the Big 12 scheduling conspiracy that sent them to TCU and then have to play OU in consecutive weeks.
All right, I think that covers the spread, 16-14. Wow.
Hell freezes over.
Well, since we want to save the better games for last, let's sneak this one in. Do you guys realize we'll really look bad if we completely ignore Kansas and Iowa State, and then regardless of what's happened up until now, this is the first conference game. They are just as much in the conference race as anybody else. So we got Kansas and Iowa State. Do we have any thoughts about this, Hunter? Do you got a pick for me?
You know, I believe in the Jayhawks. Give me Kansas by 14, coming out strong, new coach. Man, they are bound to hit the jackpot. They're bound to get lucky at some point this season. It has to happen. I mean, it just hasn't happened in so long. Give me Kansas by 14 against Iowa State.
Oh. Okay, Matt. Iowa State's a 16-point favorite. How often does that happen? Hosting Kansas.
I'm gonna take the Cyclones 2-0. Can I do that?
Beautiful.
Can we say a safety with this game? Look, look. Paul Rhodes was the first Big 12 coach I ever had the opportunity to interview. I like Paul Rhodes. I like his passion, his enthusiasm. If they lose this game, it's a final nail in his coffin. But there's not much on neither one of these sidelines. So I'm gonna go a low-scoring.
Hopefully Matt stays with us here.
But here we go. 2-0 Cyclones.
Okay. All right, Robert. If TCU and Texas Tech can score over 100, how about Kansas and Iowa State?
Oh, yeah. Over-under of 59.5. That I don't know what's being smoked in Vegas, but even worse is Iowa State by 16 because I don't know if they can score enough to be that far ahead of Kansas.
Well, they're playing Kansas. They can.
Is this game being played? Is this game being played in the high school slate on Friday night? Maybe. Oh, it is a Saturday game. That ought to be an 11 o'clock game.
I think the JV plays on Saturday, don't they? Saturday morning.
Here's the travesty here, guys. I think it is an 11 o'clock game.
Right.
So that's what Oklahoma is going up against. You get the Sooners and the Mountaineers on the same level as Iowa State and Kansas.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. That's not right.
Hey,
Yeah.
there's so many good games across the country this week. There are some decent games at noon, believe me, other than Oklahoma, West Virginia even.
Yeah, no, I'll take Iowa State 24-14.
All right. Oklahoma State, Robert, hosting Kansas State, both teams undefeated.
All right. I'm going to go against my better nature and pick OSU to win. I usually get superstitious. Obviously, I picked Texas to win last week because I didn't want to jinx OSU. So I'm going to go with Cowboys. They're going to win it's going to be low scoring. I think maybe 21.
Okay, Matt. Interestingly enough, I'm going to hit you with this. Who's the more hated rival for Oklahoma fans? Is it the Cowboys or the Longhorns?
Oh, it's definitely the Longhorns, hands down. I mean, yeah, it's not even close. But
okay.
Wait, until Thanksgiving comes, and then you kind of get itching about the guys in orange. But hey, look, Oklahoma fans know about Bill Snyder. They know what he can do. Did we lose Robert? He just got left.
He's like splitting a gut or something. He's
like Oklahoma fans know about Bill Snyder. They know. I mean, this guy. I don't know how he does it year in and year out. I do think there's some sort of black magic wizardry stuff that goes on in that locker room that no one is privy to. I will say this. I think there's some concerns that may have popped up last week about Oklahoma State's offense in the area of turnovers. And one guy that can make you pay for those turnovers is Bill Snyder. That said, I don't see how Kansas State can win this game. I see how they can make it ugly. One of the clutch guys in the Big 12 is Oklahoma State's kicker Grogan, and I think he wins it by a field goal, 27-24 Cowboys.
All right, Hunter, we got Kansas State and Oklahoma State. If we're looking for a sleeper, we might have one in this game.
Bill Snyder starts a defensive tackle at quarterback who goes on to pass for 150 yards, but it's all the Wildcats need. Snyder Black Magic wins the day. But in all honesty, there is some weird juju with him. And, man, when we get to talking about those best Big 12 coaches, for me, it's Bill Snyder. And it's not even close for anyone. And there are a lot of really good coaches in the Big 12, but it will always be Bill Snyder for what he did for that Kansas State program. But, man, right now I do believe there are some questions that for Oklahoma State on offense. And if there's anyone that can exploit your weaknesses, it is Bill Snyder. So I'll take Kansas State.
I agree. It was a wasteland forever. He built it. He leaves. It's a wasteland again. He comes back. They win. He doesn't recruit anything past like the top 50 in the nation, but they still win 9 or 10 games. It's crazy. All right, Hunter, what do you got for Texas Tech and Baylor?
Hurts me to say this, but give me Baylor 62, Texas Tech 52. Take the over. Take the over in this game. Baylor's secondary is not very good, and to be completely honest, ours got exposed a little bit against TCU. There's going to be a lot of balls thrown all over the field. There's going to be a lot of people running wild and free, and it's going to be a barn burner again.
All right, Matt, here's a little scouting game for you. Texas Tech taking on Baylor.
Yeah, isn't this game played at AT&T Stadium, right?
Yep, Jerry World.
I mean, is Jerry Jones buying the Big 12? Is that what's going on here? I don't know. I see again. I look at this and I think I'm a believer. I mean, don't disappoint me, Texas Tech, because you made me a believer last week. I don't think the Red Raiders win this game, but I think they do enough to make other Big 12 teams really concerned about having to play this Cliff Kingsbury offense. I do agree. I don't think the Baylor defense, particularly that secondary, is what people thought it was going to be. I see some turnovers in this game as well that limit opportunities. I'm going to pick Baylor 45-35, 45-38, somewhere around there, between 7 and 10 points better than Texas Tech.
This has to be some kind of trap for bettors. Texas Tech getting 17 against Baylor. All right, Robert, we got to the Red Raiders and the Bears.
All right. What did this game was played at AT&T last year, right?
Every year, I think since about like the late 2000s. I don't know the exact year.
So, all right. So, despite Hunter's clear, animosity towards Oklahoma State this weekend, I'm actually going to go with his team. I'm all for Texas Tech. I think everybody knows that I have no love lost for Baylor. So I'm going with Tech. I think the line, minus 17 is crazy. The over, I definitely would be all over the over, especially if Mahomes comes out and is functional, not just in the pocket, but is his usual stuff where he can move some. Baylor's defense is not impressing me at all. So I'm looking for a big scoring game. I'd like to see Tech win this say 55-48.
Robert, if you could give me your record against the spread, then I would believe in this outlandish confidence.
I have no record against the spread, which is why I'm so good at predicting it.
I should be so wise, but I put my neck on the line. All right. The football is great in the Big 12. Again, we've got 4 really good matchups. We had a couple tremendous games last weekend, but you guys make it a whole lot more fun. So we got Matt Hofeld from Crimson and Cream Machine, Robert Whetsell from Cowboys Ride for Free, and also from SB Nation's Viva the Matador, the one and only Hunter Cooke. Guys, thanks so much. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Y'all have a good night.